Hello, and welcome to our Wikipedia Edit-a-thon on addressing the discoverability gap for women in science. And happy International Day of Women and Girls in Science. If you joined early, we hope you enjoyed the sneak peek at some of the women whose work will be highlighted today through our Wikipedia work. I'm Summer Hamilton, and I'll be your host for today. I am the Digital Community Partnership Specialist at the Smithsonian American Women's History Museum. The Smithsonian American Women's History Museum expands the story of America through the often untold accounts and accomplishments of women, individually and collectively, to better understand our past and present and inspire our future. We are one of two new Smithsonian museums, along with the National Museum of the American Latino. We were signed into legislation in 2020, which stipulates that we will have a physical museum on or near the National Mall in Washington, D.C. Until our physical museum is built, we have the unique opportunity to meet people where they are, both in person and online. Thank you for being here. Before we get into today's program, I want to do a little housekeeping and share what you can expect as participants. So for those of you who are new to Zoom, one of my colleagues will drop a link in the chat with additional information on getting started in Zoom. For this session, microphones and the chat feature are only enabled for our panelists. If you have technical questions about Zoom or wiki-related questions about Wikipedia, about the Edit-a-thon, we ask that you use our Q&A box. You can find this by clicking on the Q&A button in your taskbar on the bottom of your Zoom screen. Thanks to feedback from previous attendees, we have also enabled the reactions feature. Please feel free to put a thumbs up or heart at any time. Automatic captions are available through Zoom. You can activate them or deactivate them by clicking Show Captions or Hide Captions in your taskbar at the bottom of your Zoom screen. We'll also drop more detailed instructions for viewing captions in the chat. Please note this session will be recorded and may be posted to YouTube or other channels at a later date. Finally, and most importantly, we ask that we all work to create a safe and respectful environment for everyone here. So, following this introduction, let's talk about our agenda for today. So following this introduction, Elizabeth Harmon, the digital curator here at the Smithsonian American's Women's Museum, will talk about the museum's Discoverability Lab and how it relates to our Wikipedia Edit-a-thon. After that, we'll hear from Katie Hafner, co-producer and host of Lost Women of Science, about their organization's mission regarding women in science. And from there, Anne Sacker, who sits on the advisory board of the Lost Women of Science, and she and I will highlight some of the women on today's Edit-a-thon work list. Then, physicist and Wikipedia expert Jess Wade will speak about the important role that Wikipedia plays in recognizing women in science. After that, we'll launch into a training or refresher for some with Ariel Citrone from Wikimedia DC, who will review basic editing within Wikipedia. At the end of the training, we'll invite everyone to take advantage of our work list and supporting sources and dedicate the remaining 90 minutes or so to editing women's biographies in Wikipedia. Please know that we have designed this webinar for flexibility. We have blocked out 3 hours, but you can stay for as much or as little as you have capacity for. Please also feel free to take breaks if you need to grab lunch, step away, stretch, whatever. At around 12:50, we hope that you'll reconvene with us as we wrap up and discuss what's next for the Women's History Museum. I want to begin today's program by reading an excerpt from a poem by Adrienne Rich called Planetarium, which was published in 1968. Rich dedicated her poem to Caroline Herschel, the first professional female astronomer, and others. Starting with this poem reminds us that science is about curiosity, imagination, and courage as much as it's about data and discoveries. It invites us to see women in science as whole people with stories worth hearing. I'm going to read excerpts from the beginning and the end of the poem, but I encourage you to read it in full at your leisure. Planetarium by Adrienne Rich. A woman in the shape of a monster. A monster in the shape of a woman. The skies are full of them. A woman in the snow among the clocks and instruments or measuring the ground with poles. In her 98 years to discover 8 comets. She whom the moon ruled like us, levitating into the night sky, riding the polished lenses. galaxies of women there doing penance for impetuousness, ribs chilled in those spaces of the mind. I am bombarded, yet I stand. I have been standing all my life in the direct path of a battery of signals, the most accurately transmitted, most untranslatable language in the universe. I am a galactic cloud so deep, so involuted that a light wave could take 15 years to travel through me, and has taken. I am an instrument in the shape of a woman trying to translate pulsations into images for the relief of the body and the reconstruction of the mind. It's now my pleasure to introduce you to Dr. Elizabeth Harmon, the digital curator at the Smithsonian American Women's History Museum.
Thank you, Summer, and thank you all in the audience for being here today. I want to tell you a little bit more about the Smithsonian American Women's History Museum and the work we do here. And so let's go back a bit. Summer mentioned this, but I want to say it again. It was 2020 when Congress signed legislation declaring that the U.S. will build the Smithsonian American Women's History Museum. And the museum will ultimately have a physical building on the National Mall in Washington, D.C. Now, it's going to take, give or take 10 years to build that museum. So we have a long runway to be creative and innovative in our digital approaches as we prepare for those physical doors to open. Now, the Women's History Museum's mission is to create that space on the National Mall for women's history, but it's also to deepen our nation's stories. And as a curator helping to create the museum, I think a lot about how we can achieve that mission through our storytelling now and in the future. And I think we need to center women's voices, lives, and work in American history. How do we do that? We must think about how to see, hear, and share women's history in new ways to reach those goals. It's necessary. And I think today, one of the most important elements of this work is digital discovery. Now that people begin their information journeys online, we must make sure that high-quality historical resources are available to everybody so that people can see, hear, and learn about women's history in meaningful ways. Also, in the digital age, we must use technology to prevent the further erasure of women's history in the historical record and online. And I've come to think about discoverability as a central concept in this work. Now, discoverability is how easy it is to learn about people, things, and ideas that are new to them. And while women have been making history for centuries, their stories are often some of the least discoverable in archival and museum collections. And the thing is, that can worsen as the physical records go online. So our team, along with partners inside and outside of the Smithsonian, have been exploring why this is and how it happens so that we can counteract it today and in the future. Now, we formalize these efforts by launching the Discoverability Lab. The Discoverability Lab is a cooperative effort amongst historians, data scientists, and the public to leverage emerging technologies and bring women's history from the margins into the mainstream. Using data science, crowdsourcing, and museum collections, the lab's projects and experiments help increase the visibility of women's history. Now, at first glance, this issue of discoverability might seem like a niche problem, that it's just relevant to professional researchers, but it's so much bigger. When you ask Siri, Alexa, Google, or even ChatGPT a question about history, much of the time that answer will be pulled from Wikipedia or Wikidata. So it's a problem that only 20% of biographical articles on Wikipedia English are about women. Now, for over 5 years, the museum has been working with Wikimedians and volunteers around the country to try to close this gender gap using Smithsonian expertise and resources. Our volunteers have added millions of new words about women through our public programs. The images we've added have been featured in articles in over 20 languages and viewed over 50 million times. But we have to do so much more. As a cultural heritage organization, we hold the primary sources that back up these data sets, or that can better back up these data sets. And we are excited to keep going with this work as our museum grows. So today I want to wrap things up by highlighting a scientist from our work list today, astronomer Cecilia Payne-Gaposchkin. Two of her major discoveries include determining that stars are mainly made of hydrogen and helium, and establishing that stars could be classified by temperature. In 1923, she decided to take a fellowship to study at Harvard College Observatory. That decision to travel to the United States and begin her own intellectual journey changed her life. She relished the freedom and intellectual exchange she experienced in the new setting. In her own words, though, her long career at Harvard was also a tale of low salary, lack of status, and slow advancement. Despite that, though, Payne-Gaposchkin became the first woman to become a full professor at Harvard in 1956, and by then it was a long time coming. Knowing Payne-Gaposchkin's discoveries and professional journey is important, it's critical, but it's her dedication to her scientific work and the ways that it shaped her life that are so inspiring to me. There are many ways this comes through. Here's one example. In her autobiography, to wrap up a chapter titled On Being a Woman, she wrote, "Young people, especially young women, often ask me for advice. Here it is. Do not undertake a scientific career in quest of fame or money. There are easier and better ways to reach them. Undertake it only if nothing else will satisfy you, for nothing else is probably what you will receive. Your reward will be the widening of the horizon as you climb. And if you achieve that reward, you will ask no other." Now, this is a perfect place for me to pass things over to the team at Lost Women of Science. Their podcasts always help me see the individual achievements of women in science through a much bigger lens. I'll pass things over now to Katie Hafner, the host and co-executive producer of Lost Women in Science.
Liz, thank you so much. That was, and Summer, thank you for, and the entire American Women's History Museum for hosting this. It's been quite the drum roll getting here. And I'd like to tell everyone a little bit about who we are. We are we're an educational nonprofit. We're a 501c3, and we started about 5 years ago to do a podcast. Now we do it. We have a lot more than just the podcast. We have a series of books that just is coming out from Penguin Random House based on the podcast. We have about, if you guys can believe it, more than 400 women in our database, and it's growing. And we've told the stories. We just are going as fast as we can. We are teeny tiny. And we get a lot of our funding from the Alfred P. Sloan Foundation and grants from the Gordon and Betty Moore Foundation, the Ann Wojcicki Foundation, and individual donors. And I thought I would tell you a little bit about, show you our site, our website, and tell you a little bit about this new season. Let me see if I can share it. Tell me if you see that. Whoopsie, I think that's the wrong one. Hold on a sec. I had it when we were in our practice session. So here we go. This could be it. Tell me if, yep, there we go. So this is us. This is our newest season, which is about a woman named Catherine Burr-Blodgett, who was a physicist at the General Electric Research Lab. I have to tell you, this has taken months and months and months to put this season together. We do 30-minute episodes, but we also do these multi-episode seasons, and this one has 6 episodes, and plus it's going to have a bonus episode. And we are just dropping episode 3 of the new season tomorrow. Catherine was a remarkable, remarkable woman, and you'll learn all about her. We killed ourselves on this one. I was telling everyone earlier, I've written 8 books. I was at the New York Times for a very long time, and I also write books. And this was every bit as torturous as writing a book, because a lot of what we do is rely on primary source material, which is what Liz referred to earlier And it's so hard with so many of our women to find this primary source material. We're down in basements, we're in people's attics, we're looking through storage units. In fact, in while working on this episode, that's where we found a lot of the material about Catherine was in a storage unit in New Hampshire. Uh, and we got very lucky with that. We're really hoping that you will listen to the new season, hear some of our latest episodes. We also did, Liz, we also did one on Cecilia Payne-Gaposchkin, and it was one of our best. We've got a couple of awards under our belt, which we're very proud about. And we've got a merch shop, which I thought I'd show you, which is very fun. Get yourself a tote bag. And if anybody is interested in working with us, we would love that, because we're always looking for new talent, especially if you have any talent in audio. And then after today, you can help us with our Wikipedia project, where we are, with the help of Craig Newmark, and Anna will be talking about this more. We are working to create and revise and edit and update, correct the Wikipedia pages for the women that we cover. And that is that. I thought I would end actually with a quote from the end of our latest season. I just did this in keeping with what Liz said about history and why history matters. I was just last night putting the finishing touches, so this might or might not make it into the final, for episode 6. And I was trying to say something profound about why does it matter that we tell this story of Catherine Blodgett. And here's what I wrote. Historians remind us that memory is a form of power. To remember is to claim a place in the story. So when we say that Catherine Blodgett matters, we are not talking about one woman. We're talking about an era in which science could be bold and collaborative, even slow. We're talking about a laboratory that allowed discoveries to emerge in unexpected ways. History matters because it tells us not only who we are, history matters because it tells us not only who we were, but who we might become. And in remembering Catherine Burr Blodgett, we aren't just looking backwards. Far from it. We are looking for a way forward. So thanks everyone so much for being here and doing this.
Thank you so much, Katie. We very much appreciate that, and appreciate the work that you do, and going through storage units. That's awesome. Okay, we are going to continue with our program, and I see some questions in the chat about whether or not the chat will be available, so I just want to address that really quickly. I don't believe that you are able to download the chat. However, everything that we're putting in the chat, all the links, those we can make available, and we can find a way to make those available to you through email, the follow-up email. So that's the only thing pretty much that will be in the chat that you might need. Okay, moving on, I want to talk a little bit about today's work list. So it's through events like this that we aim to boost the discoverability of women, and by improving existing articles and creating new articles for notable women who are not yet represented in Wikipedia. As has been mentioned, Wikipedia is a vital link within the network of online information, often acting as a starting point for research. Women with articles in Wikipedia are easier to find. So to manage the work today, we have compiled what's called a work list. You'll hear us use that term, and a work list just means a list that we use to track the articles to add or edit in Wikipedia. Today's work list was compiled by Jessica Gingrich of Lost Women of Science. So I just want to shout her out and say thank you for that work. So joining me on screen today to highlight a few examples from today's work list is Dr. Ann Sacker. Ann, thank you for joining me.
Thank you for having me.
Yes, I know you have spent a lot of time with this list, and so I'm excited to discuss some of the highlights. So we're going to dive right in. Okay. So for our first person on the list, I'll wait for her to come on screen. There she is. Okay, for Elizabeth Friedman. So Being someone with an English and science background, I'm really fascinated by Elizabeth Friedman because she found her way into cryptology through Shakespeare, which is not the route that one might expect. So, what can you tell us about Elizabeth Friedman?
I mean, I think I have to start out and say she's a rock star. But I guess first, let me go back to where Katie was, and a little shout out to and a thank you to Craig Newmark of Craigslist for providing the funding for us for this Wikipedia project as we got going. But back to Elizabeth Friedman, she was amazing. She lived in the first and worked in the first three-quarters of the 20th century. So she's a woman. She was a farm girl who got herself to college, became an English major, was interested in Shakespeare, and somehow became a cryptologist. So when she was working on Shakespeare, she actually got a job trying to decipher codes in Shakespeare, of which there were none. But then World War I happened, and she had experience in cryptology, so was hired by the US government to start with her husband deciphering codes. So here's a woman with an English lit major who deciphered codes in World War I, Prohibition, and World War II. She, in fact, was really one of the leading cryptologists of all of the 20th century. She wrote books, she wrote manuals for the military on how to decipher codes. And I guess I want to tell you a couple of what I think are really cool things about her. Um, During Prohibition, she wasn't working for the government. In fact, she had kind of gone home to have her babies. And the Treasury Department called her and said, we need help deciphering the codes of these rum runners. And I have this image in my head of them bringing sheafs of paper to her house, her opening the door, taking these papers in one arm and holding a baby in the other arm, deciphering these codes and sending them back to the Treasury Department. And in fact, because of her work, she helped indict Al Capone. I'm sure you've all seen the movie where you saw that because they figured out the codes, they were able to connect him to the alcohol. And then she went on, World War II started, and she was an expert. She helped decipher Nazi spy rings, etc. And if any of you have seen The Imitation Game with Benedict Cumberbatch playing Alan Turing built one of the first computers to figure out how to break the Nazi spy code with an Enigma machine. Well, Elizabeth Friedman had an Enigma machine also, and without a computer, she figured out how to decipher the Enigma and break some of the Nazi codes. So she's pretty incredible.
So, like like all the other women on today's work list, Friedman already has a Wikipedia page. So, why are we including her on the list today?
Well, I think it was kind of a little bit what Liz said and Katie said. In order for them to be discoverable, they don't just have to have a Wikipedia page, but it has to be a great Wikipedia page. It has to be organized well. It has to highlight the things that they make them notable. And in fact, because of some of the work by Lost Women of Science, we've really seen what a leading figure in cryptology Elizabeth Freeman was, and her page doesn't exactly reflect that. So we're hoping with the work we do today, we can make it even better.
Yes. So, there's another scientist on the list that we want to talk about today with a similar crime fighting background, Mary Louisa Willard. What can you tell us about her contributions to science?
She's also pretty cool, I would say. She lived at about the same time as Elizabeth Friedman, but she was a chemist, and she was, in fact, a professor at Penn State. And at that time, there were only four female professors in all of Penn State. So she managed to do it. Her expertise in chemistry was actually in microscopy and chemical structures of food. But what she's known for is she sort of was a founder of forensic science. Um, Law enforcement people came to her to help solve crimes. She used what was then cutting edge chemical techniques, infrared spectroscopy, gas chromatography, NMR, which is kind of like today's MRI, to help solve crimes in real systematic ways. I think it didn't hurt that she also drove a pink Cadillac.
That's just good to know, right?
Good to know and makes it more exciting.
Now, instead of updating her actual Wikipedia page, we're going to be working on linking her to other pages in Wikipedia. And I know that I have found that following links is a great way to accidentally learn about something. You can show a hand, show your heart or a thumbs up in the chat if you've ever opened Wikipedia for one thing and ended up on a whole different topic through clicking your way through. I personally love a good rabbit hole. So, can you tell us a little bit about why we're adding links for Mary Louisa and why that's important?
Oh my goodness, I think we've all been down that rabbit hole. And we want to make sure that when we go down that rabbit hole, we can find all, not just the men, all the people that are important in a variety of ways, including Mary Louisa Willard. And so we'd like to connect her. So she got her PhD at Cornell. She should be listed in the Cornell notable alums. As I said, she was kind of almost the first founding person in forensic science. Let's have her listed under forensic science. And she is clearly a notable female scientist and should be listed there as well.
Excellent. Yes, I'm excited to do all this work. So let's go back in time a bit and talk about another incredible figure in the list today, Rebecca Lee Crumpler. She lived during the mid 1800s. Now, this is during a time when attending medical school and publishing books was unattainable for most African Americans. And during that time, she did both, becoming the first African American woman to earn a medical degree in the US and in 1864, and then publishing a book that's been described along the lines of a what to expect when you're expecting book. But there's even more. And so, as a retired surgeon, Anne, who now helps make stories like these widely available or widely known, what excites you about seeing Rebecca Lee Crumpler on today's list?
It makes me proud. I kind of wanted to start out and like just tell a little story about myself. When I was training in surgery a long time ago, I was pregnant and about to have a baby. Well, in my training program, I was the first female surgical resident to ever be pregnant. So there was no such thing as maternity leave or anything like that. I thought that was kind of a big deal. But then I think about Rebecca Lee Crumpler. She lived 100 years before me. And she was a woman, she was African American, and she managed to get, around the time of the Civil War, she managed to go to medical school and graduate. She wasn't exactly called a doctor of medicine, she was called the doctress of medicine. But she did it. And then, as the Civil War ended, she had the incredible courage to go to the South, to Virginia, to where the Freedmen's Bureau was created to help freed slaves, to give medical care to all of these people. Not only did she give medical care, but she wrote a book for lay people, for mostly for women, on how to handle maternal health and their babies. And it was for lay people, as Summer mentioned, what to expect when you're expecting, or if you're from a different generation, our bodies ourselves. And she really focused also on the social determinants of health. It wasn't people's fault that they got sick. She talked about clean water, nutrition, safe lodging, etc. She was a real public health pioneer.
That's amazing. So many amazing women. A couple of more that we want to talk about and highlight before we get into today's work list. Another is Flora Patterson. And Flora was a mycologist, who was someone who studies fungi. And I just love the fact that she was almost 50 before she embarked on her career as a mycologist, and then would go on to work for 30 more years at the U.S. Department of Agriculture and have an amazing career as a plant pathologist. So it's never too late to pursue those passions. But there's something else that's
Can I interrupt you for
Yes,
1 second,
please.
Summer? I have to tell a story about her, which I think you'll all find exciting. Um, so in the early or mid 20th century, we all know that the cherry blossoms that line the tidal basin in Washington were a gift from Japan. Well, when those trees were given to the United States, Flora Patterson had an opportunity to look at them, and she noticed that the trees were diseased. They had a fungal disease that was invasive in the United States. And she hollered about it and let everybody know. And because of that, those original batch of cherry trees were actually not planted around the tidal basin. They were burned to prevent this invasive fungal species from coming to this country. And Japan sent a second healthy batch that came, and those are the trees that you see today. And because of that, the USDA enacted rules so that all flora coming to the United States from other countries is inspected to protect us and them.
Yay. I love stories like that. We will think of her every time the season, cherry blossom season comes.
Mhm.
So our final figure that we want to highlight is Patricia Bath, and attendees will recognize her from the Wikipedia Edit-a-thon registration page. We have her photo there. But I want to talk about today and what makes Patricia Bath's story exciting for you to see on today's list.
Wow, I mean, you picked everybody that's amazing. She is extraordinary. And actually, she's, I think, our most modern of the scientists we're talking about today. She passed away in 2019. So she was an African American woman, and she, in fact, was the first African American female doctor to get a U.S. medical patent. That's pretty impressive. And the patent that she got was for a piece of machinery that helps in a technique to dissolve cataract lenses. And as we all know, cataracts are a really common problem. And the machine that she designed really revolutionized cataract surgery, and a version of it is still being used today. So if that were not enough, she also was really interested in community ophthalmology, which really is the intersection of public health and ophthalmology. She noticed that people from less privileged backgrounds weren't getting eye care. So she set up ways for less privileged people and clinics in all places all around to not only get eye care, but also have preventive eye care to help them retain their vision. She was extraordinary.
Absolutely amazing. All of these women and others who we couldn't even get to. We barely scratched the surface of these women's lives. There's so many stories to tell about them, and there's so many more on the list. And their lives and their contributions should be easily findable, not just because they deserve to be celebrated, but also because they inspire future generations. So, to talk more about Wikipedia and the role that it plays in making it possible to know more of these stories, I want to invite Katie back on to introduce our next guest.
Yes, I am so happy to introduce Jess Wade, who's a materials scientist, Royal Society University Research Fellow, and lecturer in functional materials at Imperial College London. Her research considers new materials for optoelectronic, spintronic, and quantum devices. Jess, I hope that's right. Okay, good. In 2018, she embarked on a project. I bet everyone saw Jess all over places like CNN. It was just an amazing wave of publicity for what she does. She embarked on a project to add the biographies of women scientists and scientists of color to Wikipedia. She's the one who started my own grandmother's page. I'm going to put that up in the chat. Since then, she has added more than 2,300 biographies. She's also on our advisory board at Lost Women of Science, and she is a guiding light for our own Wikipedia project. So Jess, welcome to you.
Oh, thanks. Thank you so much. It's fantastic to be here, and I really love the presentation so far. Wikipedia, I think, is a really fantastic resource. I'll tell you a little bit about a few of the stories that I've told on Wikipedia, but you've already heard how important it is. Why I particularly started kind of this project on Wikipedia. I trained in kind of math, chemistry, physics, and art, and I actually went to art school before I started studying physics, and then started on this kind of journey through academia. And something that strikes you a lot when you move from art school into a physics department is a slight aesthetic shift, but also that huge shift from something where diversity is really celebrated to one where we don't have anywhere near as much diversity as we should, and it actually impacts the scientific questions we ask and the technologies that we create. So I've been very passionate since the beginning of my training in physics to really think about ways we can try and inspire and educate young people from much more diverse backgrounds to come into physics. But obviously, as part of that too, there's a real need to celebrate the women scientists, the scientists of color, the scientists from lots of other groups that have been historically excluded from science. Because we can't just do the one part of inspiring people in. We've also got to support and also recognize the contributions of the phenomenal scientists we have. So why is Wikipedia so important? Well, this year is its 25th birthday. Woohoo! I listened to a kind of fantastic interview with Jimmy Wales actually the other day, the founder of Wikipedia, where he said, people really trust Wikipedia and have continued to in the past 25 years because it has such a clear vision and purpose. And when I think of the scientists I most admire, they're the scientists who have the most clear vision and purpose. But Wikipedia is this tool for democratizing and opening access to knowledge is massively important. So who's this important to? Well, as you can see from my fantastic bullet point here, it's important to everyone, all different demographic groups, all different career stages, all different types of jobs, no matter where you are in the world. Everyone uses Wikipedia. Actually, consistently, it stayed in the top 10 websites, despite not taking any ad revenue. So it stayed up there as a website that people go to all the time for information. The thing I find, particularly in these current times, that's really inspiring about Wikipedia is people use it irrespective of their own personal politics. So whilst you have huge partisan uptake of news websites or other types of information sources, actually Wikipedia has remained remarkably neutral and trusted. A kind of interesting thing about it is how much Wikipedia influences the direction of science and technology itself. There was a really interesting study a few years ago where a bunch of academics got their classes, their undergraduate classes, to write pages about chemistry topics that were not yet on Wikipedia. And they kept back half of those topics and they uploaded the other half. So it was like a double-blind control trial. And they tracked the presence of those scientific topics in scientific literature. And they found that if areas of science, if these niche areas of chemistry had a page on Wikipedia, it massively increased research into that area. So there's a really interesting kind of directional aspect that Wikipedia provides because it doesn't have the jargon of other academic texts. Obviously, we've just heard, and we're all here today to try and rectify some of these knowledge gaps. So while Wikipedia feels really complete, there are huge gaps, particularly about women, particularly also about women's health, and actually anything really to do with the global south. So I started this Wikipedia mission and challenge, most fantastic project of my life in 2018 to try and tell these stories and better document the contributions of women scientists of color. And through that journey, I was like, I'll just write about physicists because physics is what I understand. And then you realize quite quickly, if you're just going to focus on women physicists, you're kind of entrenching old privilege cycles because a lot of them had to be white, quite higher socioeconomic background women to be allowed to study physics in the first place. So then I had to kind of diversify the subjects and then nationalities, etc. But it's such a huge, huge honor to research and write these biographies. And I really hope today you get a sense of that, kind of the sheer frustration that these people haven't been recognized already, how remarkably innovative they are, and that kind of constant inspiration that you will get as people who are curious and passionate about science or passionate about archives. And when you learn something new and you're just like, oh my gosh, that's the coolest thing ever. Now I wish I was researching that, or now I wish that was my job. So yeah, it's such a fun thing to do. I'll just tell you about two people and then I'll hand over because otherwise I could talk for many hours. This is Ijeoma Chegbu. I'm telling you two, one who's alive and one who's unfortunately not alive, just to show you the impact that being on Wikipedia can have. Ijeoma Chegbu is a professor. She was at the University College London, and she just started as a president of one of the Cambridge colleges. She's the first woman to be president of Wolfson College, Cambridge. Her research considers kind of nanomaterials and their applications to medicine. So translating kind of basic fundamental scientific research into real medical tools that help people in society. She was a single mum to two kids during her PhD that she raised between Hackney in East London and Nigeria. Massive kudos for that already. But then she managed to become this sensational pioneer translating science into the real world, and also through academic leadership. So she led lots of the programs around race equality and gender equality at the University College London, which is where she used to be a professor. And this is a kind of 55,000 student university in London. So it's pretty big as London universities go. I saw her give a talk about a year after I'd written her Wikipedia page. And I was sitting there watching her talk and I was like, I know everything about you. You know, when you write someone's Wikipedia page, you don't just know their science, you know, when they went on maternity leave, you know, when they applied for their first grant, you know, when they became professor. And you kind of sit there thinking, you are the coolest person ever. Anyway, I wrote to BBC Radio 4 our kind of academic broadcasting network in the UK. You probably have listened to it. Radio 4 does all of the kind of clever thinking pieces for the BBC. And I wrote to them and I said, you've got to have her on. I mean, she's got the most amazing life story. She is the most inspirational person. And she's just such a fantastic speaker on the need for science, on the need for discovery, on the need for curiosity. Anyway, by the time I'd got off the subway on my journey home, the Life Scientific had invited her on to do this fantastic biography of her life. And then she got made a dame in the New Year's Honours. And then they did this fantastic episode of her on Desert Island Discs, which is where incredibly notable people in society choose the kind of music that defines their life. And I just thought this was fantastic. You go from having someone who is remarkable, who's celebrated in academia, you put their story on a platform that everyone can read it, and then they kind of come into popular culture as well. And just one more example on that, the remarkable Dr. Gladys West, who unfortunately just passed away at the age of 95. She was born in Virginia in the States. She studied maths at a historically Black college and university at a time that very few women were able to study maths, and still during a time of quite horrific racial segregation. Gladys West actually worked as a high school teacher before working for the US government, actually the Navy, on designing the satellite network that would enable GPS. So Gladys West worked out how non-spherical planet Earth was, so you could put satellites in orbit and then be able to navigate. Incredibly inspiring woman. Nothing about her on the internet really, other than some patchy information, until I put together her biography in 2018. Now it's in over 30 different languages, which is another really cool aspect of Wikipedia. But after I put her online, the BBC put her in their top 100 women. The US Air Force inducted her to the US Air Force's Hall of Fame. The Guardian, actually pretty much every big national newspaper did a story about her, which was just the coolest thing ever. Then the Royal Academy of Engineering, our kind of prestigious UK Academy for engineering, all forms of engineering, awarded her the Prince Philip Medal and Prize, which had never before gone to a woman. So this was pretty massive. And she won it, I think, at the age of 91. So imagine how cool it is, a 91-year-old finally be recognized for the mathematics that they did decades ago. And then all of these teaching resources about her started popping up. Nature, the publishing house, changed one of their meeting rooms to being Gladys West. And actually, just when she passed away a few weeks ago, pretty much every major newspaper and news reporting site, media site, did these kind of absolutely beautiful obituaries about her. So this isn't to say that Ijeoma and Gladys were not fantastic women before their stories were online, but when you take their stories to the world, you just cannot predict what a remarkable impact they'd have. And so I really am so grateful to everyone at the Smithsonian for supporting this. The museum is already, but will be absolutely amazing when it opens. But also for all of you for giving up your time to contribute to this endeavor to get women's stories told. So yeah, thanks so much.
Jess, I just wanted to jump in with one question for you. One of the big problems that we have at Lost Women of Science is that we are very dependent, and Wikipedia, to its great credit, is as well, on primary sources. And we're talking about, handwritten manuscripts and things that you find at the Library of Congress. And Wikipedia can become kind of an echo chamber, right? And it just keeps repeating the mistakes, right? We just repeat our own mistakes. So what way do you see out of that?
There's a really, I suppose, sneaky way. Maybe this isn't for broadcast. I think there are an awful lot of journalists like yourself who really want to start telling these stories. So for a while, there was quite a lot of effort by the chemistry world, the Royal Society of Chemistry's magazine, the Women's Engineering Society, and the Institute of Physics to kind of do posthumous obituaries and biographies and telling these stories. So whilst Wikipedia relies on the use of reliable secondary sources, you can't use a primary source like an interview or a social media profile. Actually, if you get these journalists to write articles, or if you nominate people for prizes, or if you start to try and get these stories told elsewhere that you can then use to cite later, that's a really sneaky way to do it.
Thank you so much, Jess. That was wonderful and inspiring to think about the impact that your work has had and the impact that we all can have with Wikipedia and with highlighting women in general and women in science. So now I would like to introduce Ariel Citron, the Institutional Partnerships Manager for Wikimedia DC. Ariel will conduct a approximately 45-minute training on how to edit Wikipedia articles. We realize that for new editors, it can seem like a lot of new information, so rest assured we're here to support you. If you fall behind on performing any of the steps or walking through it while Ariel is going through it, then I suggest that you just focus on just following along with her slides so that you don't miss any of the valuable instruction. Ariel is going to stay on afterwards for the working portion of the edit-a-thon, and she can provide support and answer questions, as well as the rest of our team. We can help you get back on track, so no worries there. And in conclusion, I just want to say again to everyone on behalf of the Smithsonian American Women's History Museum, thank you for being here. It means so much that you showed up today. Ariel.
Thank you, Summer. Hi, everyone. We share. There will be some redundancies in my presentation, but I think the more we hear it, the more it sticks with us and the more inspired we are to make these changes and get these women's full histories written into Wikipedia. So you can expect to learn how to edit existing Wikipedia articles today and create new ones with the goal of improving and creating things that we care about today. The training should take, as Summer said, about 45 minutes. A bit about me. I'm with Wikimedia DC, which is what's called a regional outreach affiliate of the Wikimedia Foundation. Now, if you ever go onto Wikipedia and it asks you for money, that money is a donation that goes to the Wikimedia Foundation, and they use it for the cost of keeping Wikipedia online and for grants for organizations like mine. Now, affiliates have to be officially recognized by an affiliate committee, and we do outreach work related to content on behalf of the foundation and the community. We serve DC, Maryland, Virginia, West Virginia, and Delaware, but we also do programs throughout the United States. Fun fact, there are only 2 regional affiliates in the United States. Obviously, we are one of them. And Wikimedia New York City is one that is very active as well. So I provided a link in the chat. This is what I like to call the home base of operation for today. Before I continue, I do want to note there's a lot of noise outside my window today here in Arlington, Virginia. So if I have to turn my camera off and run to another room, that's not great for having my video on, but will be more quiet. If my video goes off suddenly, you'll know. It's just one of those days outside where everybody is out there scraping and doing loud things. So the joys of working from home. So the link is in the chat. Please access that. There is a section within the event page called Start Here. There are instructions for how to create a Wikipedia username if you don't already have one. There are also instructions for letting us know that you are here for this specific event. So we're asking you to log into Wikipedia, but then also go in and make sure that you can check in for this specific event. You do so by clicking on the blue link that's provided. So here's what the login button looks like at the top of the event page. Now, this is the same as the login button on any Wikipedia article. It's good to note that once you create a Wikipedia username, it can be used across all Wikimedia projects. So you can use this for Wikidata, Wikimedia Commons, and so forth. So this is what the check-in section looks like after you create your username or log in using your existing Wikipedia username. Just scroll down to the section called Start Here. We'll ask that you click the blue check-in button. Once you've done that, you can scroll down and hit the Publish Changes button. You don't have to type anything at all. What this does is we'll add your name to the list of people that are here today. Ultimately, the reason why we want to know that you are here today, obviously we do with your names and registration, but it's great to know that you're here today editing because we can take your usernames and put them into a tool and figure out what you did today as far as your edits, which is a great tool for metrics and reporting back to all of our partners as well as the foundation. So once you click that blue button, the blue check-in button, you'll get to a page that looks like this, and we just need you to scroll down and click Publish Changes. This is something that you can do throughout the day, so if you don't get to it now, that's totally fine. The most important thing I want to highlight on this page is the work list. So if you scroll down on the page, you'll see articles to create or edit. Most of these are for editing. Sometimes we do events that are all creation. Sometimes we do mostly editing. Either way, it's a great job done. So some of you that have been to past events may notice that this work list looks a little different. We had this amazing list of sources today that was a little too long to put on the event page. So what I did is I created Google Docs from the original list for each subject area. So if you select an article that you want to work on, this is how the workflow will go, and you'll have some time to practice this later. So let's say you've learned in the next 30-minute presentation how to edit Wikipedia, and you're ready to start making some changes. You'll make sure you're logged in, and you'll go down to this list. You'll pick a woman whose article you want to edit. And then you'll click on this article reservations, editing suggestions, and sources link. That will bring you to a page that looks like this. So all of the sources and editing suggestions for this section of the list will be on this page. All you need to do to start is put your name next to the article you want to edit and then scroll on down or click on the bookmarks or jump tags that I have to bring you down to the section about that person where you can start learning more. The reason we did this is I just wanted to make it easier to find the information within the page. So like I said, those that have been to our events before, it's a little different, but we wanted to make sure that we included all of these amazing sources. So again, the workflow is this. When you start, you'll find an article you want to edit. You'll then click on the article reservations link. You'll reserve the article, and then you'll read about what's missing in the articles and the things that we want you or would love to see added. Of course, you're not tied to this list. So let's say you're looking at an article on your own and you say, oh, I found a misspelling, or oh, it doesn't list one of the universities she attended or some of the work that she does. For example, go ahead and add it as long as you have a source. You don't have to add everything on here. A lot of the editing suggestions in this list for each person are quite long. So what I suggest is to do a couple small things here and there. And perhaps others will pick up the ball and do some later on. Okay, so we'll take a big step back, though we have covered some of this. If I start going too quickly, it's usually because we will be running out of time and I want to get to the actual training. With that in mind, I'll mention that this entire slide deck is on that event page as a PDF. So at the end of this event, if you want to go back and refresh your memory or see something you think you may have missed, it is all there for you to see. So if I go too fast through things that we don't need to know at this exact moment, that is why. So Wikipedia, what is it? We all know it's a free encyclopedia based on the model of openly editable content, which is a fancy way of saying it's an encyclopedia that anyone can edit. You'll hear us say Wikimedia and Wikipedia. What's the difference? Just think of Wikimedia as the umbrella. So it's the thing that covers all these projects, and then everything under it is Wikipedia, Wikidata, Wikicommons, and some of these other smaller projects as well. We will be focusing mostly on Wikipedia with a touch on Wikicommons today, and we have a lot of really great Wikimedians on the call when I was looking at the attendance list. So if there's questions that come up about some of these other projects, I'm sure that we might be able to get some of your questions answered. For the purpose of the training portion, we will be focusing on Wikipedia. Wikipedia was co-founded by Jimmy Wales, and here's a great quote from him. It basically sums up to say that there should not be a paywall between individuals and the sum of all human knowledge. It is free to edit Wikipedia. It is free to use Wikipedia. It is created and edited by volunteers. All edits and versions are recorded forever. If you make a mistake, please don't worry. It's possible to revert articles back to their former states. There are currently over 8 million articles in English language Wikipedia, and there are, I think this number is updated. I need to fix this slide, but 280 language Wikipedias around the world. So if you want to take a look at some other language Wikipedias and see what's missing there, that's great. I heard that Jess created an article and then it was created in 30 other language Wikipedias. That does not happen automatically. Somebody had to actually go in. It would be great if it happened if an article was created in one language and it automatically generated in another language Wikipedia, but that's not the case. An editor actually has to go in and create it in each individual language, which again is quite the feat. All content is freely licensed without restrictions. This is important, obviously, because it's part of Wikipedia, but also I know many of us on this call, not me so much, but many of you are published. And this has happened at a few events when I have individuals who have blogged in the past or written stuff in the past where they've just taken what they've written elsewhere and pasted it into Wikipedia articles. Obviously, that's a big no-no, but just know, and we'll talk more about copyright in a moment, and protecting your own copyrights, but just know that anything added into Wikipedia, you are releasing the rights to that. So we don't want you to copy and paste, number one, from a source, even if it's your own writing. We want you to rewrite it in a different voice or your own voice, if that's the case. But we also don't want you to lose the rights on your material. And we don't want people to think that you've given up the rights on your material if that is not the case. So please don't copy from a published source, even if you wrote it, and paste it into the article. So some basics and policies. So we have our 5 pillars and then we have our policies. So these are the pillars upon which Wikipedia is built. We already discussed that it's an encyclopedia. It's a tertiary source. It's written from a neutral point of view. Ideally, of course, it is not perfect, but that's what we strive for, this neutral voice. We like to avoid what's something called puffery. So if you are really fanning out over one of the women on our list here today, try to avoid using words like most influential, greatest of all time, GOAT, things like that. We want to be a very matter of fact and just say, if I was reading this in an encyclopedia, what would it sound like? It's always a great question to ask yourself when writing for Wikipedia. Editors should treat each other with respect and civility, and Wikipedia has no firm rules. It's always a fun one to say because, after going over the rules, but firm rules basically means that it's by community consensus, things can change. It's a true volunteer community with conversations behind the scenes and in front of the scenes. Editors should treat each other with respect and civility. Wikipedia is not really a social media platform, but it can be a social environment. Sometimes it can be social even when you don't want it to be. So for example, if you write about somebody and another person thinks that the source that you used wasn't good enough, or they don't meet it, the person you wrote about isn't notable enough to have, they could come to you and say, I've deleted your article, or let's talk about this, or you put the wrong birth date for somebody, whatever it may be. We just want everybody to feel safe and protected. If somebody talks to you in a way that makes you feel threatened, please report that behavior. And there's a way to do it within Wikipedia. Excuse me, let me back up a step. Wikipedia in some ways has been called one of the safer places on the internet, and harassment is not tolerated, and we do have systems for taking care of that. So these are the real things that we want to remember when writing. Now, most of the people on our list are already what we call Wikipedia notable because they have articles already. So when writing about individuals, again, we want to make sure we are keeping a neutral point of view. You don't have to know all sides of an argument, but when writing the side that you're able to find sources about, just try to write as neutrally as possible. Notability. As I just said a moment ago, the people on our list, with the exception of one, already have articles. So we know that their notability has been vetted. Many of the articles are long-standing. They just need work, but they are long-standing. So we're not going to deal with any notability challenges. But let's say that you were creating an article from scratch and you were worried about if let's say a woman biologist you're writing about is notable enough. The general rule of thumb, and there is a link on the event page to the full policy for all of these, specifically on notability, you want to take a look at that. You want to make sure that there is significant coverage in independent secondary, not primary, but secondary sources about that person. So talking about who she is, what she's done in her field, where she's published, awards she's won, really, what's special about her, what's notable, what's the hook. And in those sources that are supporting the points I just mentioned, it shouldn't be things like a passing mention. So it should maybe be, a chapter in a book about women scientists or scientists in general. It could be a profile piece in a news article. Now, once you have those 3 sources where she is the central subject, her work and her accomplishments. Then you can start to look at other sources, maybe passing mentions like you found an article that talked about her working with another scientist, but it just mentions her name once. Or let's say you found, another article that mentions her birthday that wasn't necessarily in the original three profile pieces. You can start to cite those things. But in order to prove notability, we need to make sure that you can find significant sources, secondary sources, where her work is really highlighted so that you can prove notability when writing the article. Verifiability speaks to this types of sources. Again, we're looking for secondary sources. So you're going to write the article or improve the article and cite secondary sources, reliable sources. So these are things that newspaper articles, journal articles. Some websites are okay. Just consider the source. So I have a bit more about that in the next few slides. No original research. So this again goes back to sources. We're not citing primary things. We're primary sources. We're citing things that other people have already written about this individual or this topic, if you're writing about a topic. So we have, we're not reinventing the wheel here. We're not going out and looking at original, lab materials or letters to colleagues or birth certificates. We're citing things that people have already researched that materials and published about that person. That's what we're citing, the secondary sources. And the reason we do that is as a tertiary source, we're citing the secondary sources because it's already been vetted in another form, in the secondary form. Assuming good faith has to do with, we want to assume that everybody wants the best for the encyclopedia. So don't jump down people's throats if they did something wrong. Don't assume that they did it on purpose. Sometimes people just don't know what to do or accidentally make a mistake. So when communicating with them, please keep that in mind. If it does, of course, come out that it was malicious, that's something that can be reported. And lastly, is conflicts of interest. Now, I like to remember this by just thinking love, blood, or money. So should I write an article about myself, someone I'm in a close relationship with, someone I'm related to, or a person or place with which or whom I have a financial relationship? So for that last one, should I write about Wikimedia DC? No. Should I write about myself? No. Should I write about a colleague that I work very closely with? Probably not. There's some gray area there. But can I write about my, 12th cousin twice removed? Fine. Can you write about, someone that works within your own field that you don't have a very close relationship with? Of course. So just make sure you have a little bit of separation. We don't want to be accused of trying to okay, I just realized I see there's a request for an editing request for one of the documents. I think it just needs to be updated. I'll take care of that once we start at the end. But just remember love, blood, or money. Okay. Next is about sources. So you want to make sure that you have good sources. We already talked about that. We won't spend too much time on that. But just know that in addition to only citing secondary sources, we want to make sure that you are not citing social media. I don't think we have that issue with the women on our list, but sometimes the only places you can find somebody's history or record, work history is in LinkedIn. On LinkedIn, we want to make sure that we stay away from citing those. Next is plagiarism. Please don't copy and paste from a source directly into a Wikipedia article, even if you are citing the source that it came from. You need to make sure that you are writing in your own voice and citing the source. Okay. Sorry, I'm just changing permissions of one of the worksheets. Okay, so nutrition should now be available for everybody to edit. We already talked about conflicts of interest. Again, I will skip through some of these because we are running low on time and this deck is available afterwards. Articles in Wikipedia are rated. They're rated by individuals, but they're also rated by something called the ORES system, which goes through and looks at how many sources are there, the amount of content, and how long the article is. And I want to explain a bit about this before we move on. So FA articles are what we call featured articles, or they're ones that are considered so good that they could be featured on Wikipedia's homepage. And if you take your eye all the way over to the right in the FA column, only 9,000 articles are rated that way. So it's not very common out of the 8.4 million that are in English language Wikipedia. If you take your eye all the way down to the start and stub rows, these make up the majority of articles in Wikipedia. So start and stub articles are the shortest articles in Wikipedia. So you see start and stub, take your eye all the way to the totals column, and you'll see, at least for stub, out of the 8.4 million articles in English Wikipedia, 3.9 million of them are short. So I always like to highlight this to say that sometimes it can be intimidating if you don't have a list like we do saying what to do or what should be done. Let's say you're looking at an article and you're bored on a Friday night having a glass of wine or tea or something, and you're looking for something impactful to do, and you see a stub article. A great thing to do is just try to get it up to a start level by adding new content. Maybe, if you want to get fancy, try to add enough content to get it up to a C-level article. See if you can challenge yourself. But just know that stub articles deserve to be in Wikipedia just as much as longer ones, because articles start with a couple lines and can build out from there. And one of the fun experiments is to look at some high-profile people and see what their articles in the View History tab, which we'll talk about in a moment, see what those articles look like when they were stubs, when they were first started, and then click on today's date and see what the articles look like now. Articles tend to grow over time. So many start as stubs and can get all the way as high as FA. We talked a bit about Wikipedia's gender gap, but here's the data that we have. A while back, I forget the actual year, one of my colleagues might be able to remember this, there was a survey done, because we don't ask about gender identity with editors, from editors rather. But there was a survey done that said that one out of every Wikipedia editors is female, but I will say that educated guesses on that, it's risen to about 12 to 15%, though again, we haven't done a big survey in a while, but we can estimate that 12 to 15% identify as women, though I will say, this still is pretty low, though it seems that we've made some progress, this still is low. So doing events like this and promoting the fact that Wikipedia needs more women editors is a good way to get more women editors. About content, out of the articles that we have about women in English language Wikipedia, so biographies, 20.29% of them are about women. Did I say that right? About the articles that we have about people in Wikipedia, 20% or so are about women. When this was first tracked, it was 15%. So we are making some progress, but with every new article that's created about women, we are closing what we call this gender gap. So some of the reasons, and this, I'm glad to hear that some of my fellow Wikimedians are on the same page with some of the things that can be done to help close this gap, because this is, aligns with my own thinking as some of the other scholarly work that I've read, is why are women not editing Wikipedia and how can we fix that? So there's been a couple, studies-ish about this and surveys, and it's been found that there's an aversion to conflict for some people because you go in there, you spend a lot of time, you do a lot of work, and somebody comes along and says, they're not notable, and delete it right away. Of course, that's, in my opinion, many cases when writing about women, that's not good faith. That's not having a conversation. That's not correcting people so they know how to do it better. That's how I personally, as a Wikimedian, deal with folks. But it has been found that women stop editing Wikipedia because of an aversion to conflict, also the fear of deletion. So, of course, there's also a systemic bias when writing about women, especially in fields like science, and also a lack of reliable secondary sources. So here is my plug. What can you do to fix this? So obviously you can have gender-focused events like this. If you are in a position to publish about women, that will help Wikipedians write articles about them. So if I cannot find a secondary, so if I know that there's a woman out there who was, a tremendous figure within her field, made a lot of contributions, should have a Wikipedia article, and I know about her because I saw, something online or a blog post, or I read about her in an original material, but I can't find any reliable secondary sources about her, I can't write that article because I can't cite primary sources. So if you are in a position to, as an authoritative source, to write about these women, that gives us as Wikimedians and you, hopefully, as future editors, something to cite. So that is my plug for you. One of the great things about we work with the Smithsonian quite a bit in different departments and museums. And I always say, you know, a great intern project in the summer is to have some of your interns, obviously with, in some cases with, you know, supervision, write about women who don't have Wikipedia articles and then publish about them on the Smithsonian website. Because then when a Wikipedian comes along and says, oh, wow, now I can write about this woman because I can cite the Smithsonian as an authoritative source. Now we're going to get into the how-tos. There's going to be some back and forth about sorry, I'm seeing that there are some of the permissions have changed on some of the articles pages that I've created. I can go ahead and fix them in a moment. So there will be some steps on how to that will take a moment for you all to do, and I can circle back and fix those things when you're doing it. So now we're going to get into the how-to. How do we edit Wikipedia, and what are some things that you're going to see? So when you create a Wikipedia username, you are have access to what's called a user page. We're not going to do anything with this now, but you can just know that it exists. When you log in, you will see your name as a hyperlink at the top. If you're new, it will be red. If you click on that, it will present you with a blank page where you can share information about yourself. You never have to share your real name, your location. If you're writing as part of your job, you do have to put a conflict of interest statement saying that you will abide by the conflict of interest policy of Wikipedia. But if you are just on there editing for fun, you can share, what the subjects or topics you're interested in. You do not have to use it though, but it is sometimes nice to put something there just so people know that you're human. You will receive messages in Wikipedia occasionally, and they are usually left on what's called your talk page, which is you click on your user page, and then on the left-hand side, you'll see a talk tab. You can reply to people directly on that page. Now is where we're going to start clicking around and doing things. I always acknowledge here that sometimes can be tricky going back and forth between my presentation and doing these things within the event page. So I try to explain as well as I can so that you could do it while I'm explaining to you verbally as opposed to looking at my screen. So there are two types of editors in Wikipedia. There is visual editor and source editor. So visual editor is what you see is what you get editing system. So you click on the screen, your cursor starts flashing, and you can start editing. Source editor is code editing. We will not be learning how to do that today. I'm sure many of you have the ability to edit in code, but we will not be learning how to do that today. So what I want everyone to do is go to the event page that I shared. I can share it again in the chat. Okay, I do see something in the chat that went to just the hosts and panelists. I'm going to just explain to everyone what's going on with that comment because we do have some Wikimedians that might be able to help. Especially possibly Peter or anyone else who's on the call. Peter is our board president. There's somebody who's having an issue because their IP address is blocked and it won't let them create an account. So if anybody is able to help with that, that would be great. If we don't get to it in the next few minutes during the training, I can come back in the silent editing time and actually create the username for you. So don't worry about that. For those of you that are able to get in, what I want you to do is go to that event page. You're going to log into Wikipedia on the top right. And you're going to click on the person icon. Once you've done that, scroll down and click the Preferences button. On the following page, you'll see something that looks like this. I want you to click on the Editing tab, which I believe is still the third from the left. Once you've done that, scroll down to the section called Editor. Within that section, there's a drop-down menu called Editing Mode. What I want you to do is click on that drop-down menu, open it up, and select Show Me Both Editor tabs. I'm going to run through that again. Okay, one more time. So make sure you're logged into Wikipedia and you're looking at our event page. It could be honestly from any Wikipedia article, but for this sake, let's go to the event page. Make sure you're logged in. At the top, click on the person icon. Then you'll click on Preferences. Then you'll click on Editing. Then you'll scroll down to the Editor section, open the Editing Mode drop-down menu, and select Show Me Both Editor tabs. Make sure you scroll down and save that setting. Okay. Apologize for anybody who's trying to access the sheets with the sources on that. Right before the event, I set everything to editor mode so everyone can edit it, and it looks like they've all reverted. So I'm slowly going through and just making them all easily accessible for you to edit so that you can reserve your articles within those pages. Not really sure what happened there, but we'll fix it. Article anatomy. So now we're going to talk about what an article looks like and then go right into how we get into it and add this content. So an article in Wikipedia, I have this sample article we've used at some past events, and I think this sort of straddled some of the past events that I've done with the museum. So we have Dr. Mary Edwards Walker. She was a surgeon, and as you can read, did some amazing things. So we have the article here. This will be my sample article. I purposely chose something that was not on our work list so that it would leave you all with things to do. Wikipedia articles have talk pages, so if you look at the article and click on the talk page, it'll bring you to any behind-the-scenes conversations that were had. So, for example, if you're finding conflicting sources that, for things like a birth date or birthplace, and you want to have a conversation with somebody, you can go ahead and click on the talk page and add the question there and try to have a conversation. You don't have to ask for permission to edit an article on a talk page. You don't have to do anything there at all if you don't want to, but it's there for your use if you want to have a discussion with others about this specific article. Wikipedia articles have what's called a View History page. So if you're looking at the article and you click on View History, every date in this line on this screen is a time that somebody hit publish. And I see some familiar names that are actually here today, I think, that are on this list from a few edit-a-thons ago. But every time someone made a change and hit publish, it is logged here. So if you ever wanted to look at what an article looked like or revert to an older form of an article, you would go to the View History page and click on the date. Articles are organized as follows. So it opens with what's called the lead paragraph. As we've all read Wikipedia articles before, so you know the emboldened name. If we have the biodata, so the birth date, death date, if that applies, and then a statement about who they are or were. So this lead paragraph is it should be a summary of the most important things about them. So it should include who they are, what they did or do, and why are they important. An easier way to remember that is, what is the hook? Okay, who is this person? Why are they important? Those are the most important things to have in the opening of a lead paragraph. The sections below the lead paragraph are if it's a biography, the story's life told in chronological order. So you'll often see early life and education, followed by career, followed by legacy, and then a section for publications. Sometimes legacy and publications are switched. If you want guidance on how sections should be ordered, so what order the section should go in, you can go to the Manual of Style in Wikipedia, which is WP: Manual of Style, Or you can go to a good Wikipedia article about somebody of a similar area, subject area, or professional field and see how theirs is organized. That's a good cheat code to figure out how yours should be organized. And then, of course, we have references at the bottom. So Wikipedia uses inline citation. So you'll make a statement of fact. You'll cite the source where you got that information from, and the reference has the citation has a corresponding source at the bottom. It's important to note that the references section, the section header here, doesn't automatically appear in an article, which as a trainer is very frustrating. You have to manually add it to a new article before you begin. So Wikipedia has hyperlinks. So we all know that if you click on this, you go to the article about abolitionists and the other areas where she was active. Below the general area, so we have below the lead paragraphs and the sections, we often have things called external link sections and categories. Now, again, these have to be manually added. External links are things like, for example, they could be primary sources, things that you didn't necessarily want to cite, but things that you wanted to share. Now we get into the fun stuff, editing existing articles. So this is where I leave my slide deck and I'll go into the article here. So let me make this bigger. I know that you can see all my tabs, but it's okay because they sort of all apply to what we're doing here, and we'll go back and forth. So you'll see right here, I know I'm logged in because my username is here. I have my person icon here, and I have two buttons at the top. I have edit and edit source. Now, if for some reason you didn't set that preference at the beginning and about your editor and you're only seeing edit source, you can click on edit source, which will bring you to the code, and you can just click on this pencil to change to visual editor. Now, the reason I just don't have you do that off the bat is I think it's important to set that preference that I showed you so that you always have the edit button and don't have to go through that extra step. Now, let's say I'm reading an article and I want to edit it, whether it's something that's on one of the pages that was provided or you found something on your own. You're just going to make sure you're logged in and click that edit button. Now, I can type anywhere in this article and start writing. I can go down here and delete things. Don't worry, I will not save this. I can add whatever I want. So the first thing I'm going to show you how to do is do a citation, arguably one of the most important things that you need to know how to do. So let's say I've added some content here. Let's put it down here because you don't always see citations in a lead paragraph. It really depends on the style of the person who started it. So let's say I added some text here and I wanted to cite my source. So I'm going to go up here to this formatting bar, which is going to be your best friend. So you'll see cite and a quotation icon, or some of you will only see a quotation icon. You're going to click on that and it will bring up a pop-up menu. Now, if it's a URL, all you have to do is paste it in here. If it's an ISBN from a book or DOI from a journal, just paste it in here and click create. It'll automatically put your citation number there and the corresponding source at the bottom. Sometimes this doesn't work. It'll format in a funky way or you get an error message. In that case, you go over here to manual. And if you're citing a book and you don't have ISBN, or you're citing a news article, you can do this as well. So let's say I wanted to cite a book. I would just click on this and fill in the necessary fields. Of course, try to be as complete as possible, and you can add things from over here if you need to. But after telling you to do that, I'm not actually going to do that for the sake of time, and I'll insert it. So again, you place your cursor at the end of the punctuation. There are some styles where that is not the case, where there's some citations in the middle, but you'll place your cursor where you want your citation to go, click on the cite button, and follow the prompts here. Now, let's say I already cited something and I want to just use it again. I could select it, copy it, and paste it anywhere else in the article, and it'll just bring it there as well. That's a good trick. You can also go up here, click on cite, and click the reuse button and find it in the list. I find it even quicker to just highlight the source you want to add somewhere else as well and paste it somewhere else. Now, is hyperlinks, this is the same way you're going to make hyperlinks in an email or a website. So I'm going to do this one. Okay. So let's say you want to link from her article to another article. And I know that we are doing that as part of our work today. You're going to highlight the phrase or thing the first time and only the first time it appears. So let's say Medal of Honor appears 10 times within this article. You're only going to hyperlink to it the first time. So don't feel like you have to go through and find every instance of Medal of Honor within this or another article. So let's say I highlight it and I want to link to the other Wikipedia article about that topic or subject. I just go up to my link icon and click on it. Now, Wikipedia automatically shows me every Wikipedia article in English language Wikipedia that is titled Medal of Honor. I find the one I want and I select it. And that's all you need to do. Now, I see right here, like this is an edit that I would make, is Medal of Honor is actually here twice hyperlinked. So I'd probably break that one since it's already done here. So I'll show you that again. You will highlight what you want to link to, what Wikipedia article you want to link to, go up here to the link icon and select from the list which one you want to link to. And you only have to do it the first time. Now there is a, sorry, you might hear my dog. I think the mailman's upstairs. Not literally upstairs, but outside. There is a place within articles and that again has been added by another editor. And if you don't see within the article you're working on and want to add it, you can definitely do that. Sometimes there's a section called further reading. Again, these are additional things about her that may not have been cited. There are also external links. So I'm going to show you, in addition to what I just did of how to link from Wikipedia to Wikipedia, in external links, you're linking from Wikipedia to an external website. So this would really be one of the only appropriate places it is to do that. So let's say you had an oral history or an interview or a video or something like that. You can link that within external links with the same thing. So you're going to title it, say what you're linking to, then go all the way back up to the link icon. I'm sorry, did I forget to select it? I'm going to select it, go up to the link icon. And you see here how I have Wikipedia here, an external site. Click external site and paste your URL right there. So within the article, the rule of thumb is within the article, you're linking to and from Wikipedia. In the bottom, in external links, you are linking to external websites. Not all articles have this section. You're welcome to add it, but just know that that's an option. The next thing I will show you, one of the last things, there's two more things, and then we will start to wrap up so you can get started. And I can go fix the permissions on some of those documents that reverted for some reason. You'll see these sections here. Those are manually added by the editor. So after the lead paragraph, you will start to see sections. So let's say I was adding a section called Early Life and Education. I'm just going to type it, highlight it, and change the font. It's as simple as that. So I'll go up here to the font bar, so where it says paragraph, and change it to a heading. Okay, you can also do it by selecting the font first and then typing the name. So again, early life, I'm sorry, here. So we can do it this way too, change the font, type early life and education. I'm not a great typist, and I'm also supposed to wear glasses more than I do. So you'll see, you can probably tell that from the way that I type. So we have the section header here. Now, a moment ago, I mentioned that when creating a new article, you do need to manually add a references header. You would do that, and this is a pro tip. If you have a blank article in front of you that you're starting from scratch, I recommend the first thing that you do is go to the bottom and add a heading called references. Once you do that, just click back at the top and start typing. But make sure you add that references section at the bottom before you add new content. The last thing I'll show you how to do is photos. So all photos within Wikipedia must be in Wikimedia Commons first. So that means that somebody went to Wikimedia Commons and added the content there so that Wikipedia had access to it. This helps us manage copyrights for images, lets us know that the photos that are in the articles are allowed to be there online, because remember, Wikipedia's material is not copyright. So this means that somebody went and took either images that are in the public domain or things that they've released the released the rights for and put them into Wikipedia. So let's say you're in an article and you say, I wonder if there's a picture of her in Wikimedia Commons that I can put into this article. You're going to place In this case, because we're not doing this in code, it's not very scientific, but place your cursor in the general area where you want the photo to go. You'll then click on Insert, Images, and Media, and you will find, and you can type her name in. So I'll do Mary Edwards Walker. And it's going to communicate with Wikimedia Commons and see what photos do we have of her here. So I'll click on that and then click on Use this image. I can caption it if I want to. I can add hyperlinks. I can put alternative text, which is if somebody's visually impaired. It's what the screen reader will tell them the picture looks like. And then you click Insert. So again, to put a photo from Wikimedia Commons into Wikipedia, you place your cursor where you want it to go, click Insert, Images and Media, and then just search for the image. Now, if I wanted to edit an image, that's already there. I would just need to click on it, select the Edit button, and edit the image. That sums it up as far as editing new articles. So for you all to get started, the idea is that you will go to the event page. You will find the article that you want to edit. Okay. You'll find the article you want to edit here, and you will reserve it on one of these sheets. So you'll click on here, put your name in the section where you want to, in the field next to the name you want to work on. And then you'll say, okay, this is the one I'm going to work on. And you can go down here and find the sources. I did include Wikipedia links right here, so you can go to the article and go back and forth between the sources that are provided and the suggestions and the article itself. So let's say I found some things on this page, I think I'm going to write about her. And it says fix these errors. So you can go through and try to pick a couple of things to do. You will go to the article, click edit, and start adding and editing your content that way. Lastly, what's pretty important is do not forget to publish. This publish button at the top right, it's really important that you click it. If you lose internet, your computer dies, somebody else is editing at the same time as you and they publish before you do, you're going to lose everything that you've done. So I highly recommend every 15 minutes, or if you've typed something you really don't want to lose, if it's earlier than that, click that publish changes button and then just click edit again and continue to work. And that did bring up one more last point. It is possible for two people to work on the same article at the same time, but if you save at different times, you're going to lose your work. So this is one of the reasons why it's important for you to reserve your article within these pages. Please do not start working on an article today without reserving it in this list. If you see somebody else's name next to an article that you want to work on, please just at least temporarily pick another one to start working on. This isn't always the case, or an issue rather, when working on articles that are not at an edit-a-thon, because we have, thousands of active editors at all times, but we're not always working on the same 30 names. We have about 70 people here today, and we are all working on the same name. So it's really important that we select the ones we want to work on. And as I said, I'm going to go back and make sure those permissions are on all of these sheets here so that you can reserve your articles. Now, I'm briefly going to take a look at the chat, see if there's anything that I can answer that wasn't answered by any of our any people on the call. Okay, I see one question. If we don't finish what we're doing today, can we work on it at a later time? Absolutely. This page stays live. You can always edit Wikipedia, whether it's things on this list or in other places, anytime you want. I do not take these these event pages down. You can always come back and work on them. Let's see if there's anything else. Great. Most of the questions were about if it would remain live. One of the things about these article reservation pages and suggestion pages that are linked here next to each subject area is that they are very long and there's a lot of work to be done. So obviously it's not realistic to say that we'll get to all of this today, but we do have a lot of room for work at later events or maybe follow-up events or on our own at not at an event. So with that, I'm going to stop sharing. There is one article on our list for creation. If you decide that you want to create it, it's a little bit of a different process because I've saved it as a draft. What you need to do is just click on it and it will open a blank page. You'll then type in references at the bottom, as I mentioned before, turn it into a header, and go up here and start typing the article from scratch. Not to confuse you more, but one of the weird things that happens is when you are creating a new Wikipedia article, you will not see the references that you add or the sources at the bottom until you hit publish for the first time. It's a weird quirk. Wish it wasn't the case. All right, I'm going to stop sharing and take a look at the chat momentarily. We do have some very experienced editors on the call. I'll do my best to answer questions. If I don't know the answer, I might ping them, or maybe you know who you are. You can hop in and answer questions as well. There's a question that says, "There are people in the Google Doc who aren't in the reservation table." I'm going to take a look at that because that shouldn't be the case. But if they're on, if you wouldn't mind, if you see the names of those, if just message me in the chat so I can make sure it's not a duplicate from another list. I just want to make sure that two people don't work on them by accidentally at the same time. All right, so thank you. I will toss it back over to Summer if we need to, or if not, we can just do some quiet editing time. Okay, Ella, thank you for that. I'll take a look.
Thank you so much, Ariel. Yeah, so now we are entering into our focused editing time. If there are questions that we see coming up repeatedly or that we think would be best answered live, then we will, we speaking for Ariel, we'll jump on and cover those as well. Thank you guys. And please also, we encourage you to use the Q&A to answer your question, to ask your questions, because if you ask in the Q&A, we can answer there and the answers will be available for everyone. So please make use of the Q&A and we will be actively monitoring it. Thank you. Hello. Thank you guys for joining us today. Thank you all for joining us for our Edit-a-thon on addressing the discoverability gap for women in science. I hope that you are feeling accomplished. I hope you were able to make a few edits and maybe you're still making them right now. If so, feel free to carry on as I help wrap things up. If you want to learn more about discoverability, we invite you to check out our website and we will drop that link in the chat in just a bit. I want to say a big thank you to all of the panelists who joined us today as well, and all of our team members, including Diana Turnbow, who has not been on screen, but who has been doing amazing work behind the scenes, always with her research, and then today with her technical support. So thank you so much, everyone, and Diana. And thank all of you for being here. You've been a fantastic group. Thank you for your questions. Thank you for your work. I've been seeing the activity in the Google Doc, and it's been wonderful to follow along with your questions and see all these edits and changes and make these women more discoverable, more visible. So if you learned something new, if you made an edit, if you added a link or anything, if you just give a heart or a thumbs up just to see that you're out there, we appreciate it. Thank you for your work today. Yay, I see those coming. Yes, celebration, all of it. Yes, excellent. If you have time after this webinar, there's going to be a link into a survey once we close the room. We'd love your feedback on how to make these more useful in the future. We'll also email the link. So if you don't have time right afterwards, no worries, it'll come in an email. On March 23rd, you will have the opportunity to use these newfound skills or to reuse these well-honed skills. We'll be hosting another edit-a-thon with a new work list focusing on women connected to We Do Declare, Women's Voices on Independence, which is our oral history project exploring when and how women have advanced their economic independence over the last 50 years. So please join us on March 23rd for that edit-a-thon. We'd love to have you. In the coming years, there will be lots of opportunities to volunteer, to co-create with us, and of course, you can support our work by becoming a donor or a charter member. Please visit womenshistory.si.edu to learn more. You can also stay current on museum news and learn about other ways to get involved by following the Smithsonian American Women's History Museum on social media at Smithsonian Women and signing up for our newsletter. Also, we're on Instagram, we're on Facebook, we're on LinkedIn. So please find us on social media. Thank you all for helping us. Thank you again for helping to close the gender gap on Wikipedia and to enhance the discoverability of women's history. We are glad you were here. Thank you, and have a good afternoon.